It's worth taking. It's actually like pretty enjoyable class.
Tired. We gotta do work, keep the lights on, because this job don't pay.
A likely story. Now, let's go.
All right, ICM Sheila, we ready?
Yes, ma'am, I think we're ready.
Madam Clerk, we can note that we do have quorum. And I'll make a motion to approve the minutes.
So move.
All right, and we, all in favor, aye.
Thank you.
Yeah. Okay. We can move right in. First of all, thank you all so much for waiting, and I apologize for the delay, balancing all the things today, but very excited for today's agenda. The first agenda item is the Bloomberg Youth Climate Action Program. Miss Mary Pat will be presenting alongside, I'm sure, some other folks as well as Miss Peyton Lang.
It's gonna get started.
Okay.
Good morning, everyone, and we're really excited to provide some updates about the Bloomberg Youth Climate Action Fund program. We'll do a little bit of history to how we got to today. And last year, Mayor Rickaman attended COP28.
I appreciate the
Right.
circle, so that we
Oh,
know.
that was
where it
all
is.
Mary Pat and her beautiful talents. Just so you know, he's in there. I was hiding. But we had the joy of being there and seeing kind of on the global stage how local governments are stepping up because we're the ones facing the impacts of climate change when it comes from flooding, when it comes from increasing temperatures and beyond. And so to be there and start saying nations don't just need money, but local communities do is really important. And in part of that, Bloomberg stepped up with a challenge for local communities to not only step up as they were, but to bring the future leaders into that conversation. So students and kids and communities, they're the ones that are really going to face the impacts. And so they proposed the Youth Climate Action Fund program. And so to tell you a little bit about it, they created the fund. Anyone that went to COP28 was an eligible community to apply for the first $50,000 disbursement. And with that, they asked you to propose how you would engage youth in your community to take on small-scale micro-grant programs that could create change that aligns with your community's specific climate action plan. So they understand that someone in Texas is going to be a lot different than South Carolina, same with California. And so they wanted your plan to match your climate action priorities. And so with that, we applied and learned that we received it. From there, our wonderful sustainability facilitator, Mary Pat, kind of really took over, but I assisted her since I was there with the application priorities, what it needed to have, how we needed to match it back. We got the applications out to various youth groups from schools. One note, it was in the summer, so it was fun to reach the students and young people on summer vacation, but we were really excited with the applications we did receive. We formed a selection committee with CPAC members to review them all and score them, and then talk through the highest scores. Used a rubric provided by Bloomberg. We scored those applications and then announced the highest scoring recipients. All recipients were required to have a 501c3 to administer the grant. And with students, it was really cool to see the community step up. There was a student that needed it and their school ended up sponsoring them. And so the ideas were not stopped just by the lack of an administrative body. So we have a pretty wide range that Mary Pat's going to share with you. But we wanted to come to you. It's about the midterms of the projects to share, number one, where we're at, but then also I'll let her talk about it. We'll submit our midterm reporting from our groups, but then we'll be eligible for an additional $100,000 to expand the program from Bloomberg just by, number one, spending the $50,000 and then showing the impact thus far from all our recipients, which we think they're doing a great job from their reporting, and it looks very promising. So with that, I'll pass that over to Mary Pat to talk about the exciting recipients.
Thank you. I get the fun job of telling you who got the money and what they're doing with it.
So when you all applied, was there like a common vision of what we wanted to do for all of Columbia, or did they submit like separate projects?
They submitted separate projects,
Okay.
but we had them use our climate action plan
Oh, okay,
to
great.
look and see what we were focused on. And so we asked them to focus on something in the climate action plan.
Okay.
All right, the first recipient was Columbia College. They got nearly $5,000. And you've heard of farm to table? That they're doing greenhouse to table.
Oh,
They are
cool.
repairing an old greenhouse and they're going to be growing herbs and taking the herbs to the cafeteria and they're going to put them in the meals. So that is just really exciting. The first lady of Columbia College, this is like her thing. She's really into the planting, and so she's been a great advocate for them. And youth volunteers are coming from the New Campus Garden Club, which she's helping sponsor. So there's the old greenhouse, and then we're gonna see how it looks later.
They're going to refurbish that house or what?
Update the greenhouse, yes.
Okay. So we minimally supported that by $5,000, right?
Right.
Okay, all right.
Next is Dreer High School. They got nearly $4,400. They are installing 2 native plant gardening beds, one at Dreer and one at Stems Park. They're going to present workshops at the park, at the gardens, to teach students what they and their families can do to help the environment. And they planted the gardens this weekend, and they sent me a video, and they were so excited. They've had a few setbacks, but so they were really glad to get it done Saturday. The next one is Gills Creek Watershed Association.
No.
And they got $4,500 to assess water quality. They are assessing the water quality downstream from the sites of the 2 new upcoming stormwater infrastructure pieces, one in Shannon and one in Rosewood. And if y'all know this, Devil's Ditch, they're sampling Devil's Ditch.
Okay.
And the neat thing is this will provide a baseline for them. They'll go back once the infrastructure is in place and can determine what effects it's happening, what impacts it's having. They've already developed monitoring protocols, onboarded student interns, and purchased equipment. And they did their first monitoring in late September. Next is the Indian Waters Boy Scout Council. They got $5,000. They're doing a storm drain marking project on November 16th. They will mark storm drains in the city of Columbia with the standard storm drain marking logo, but they also done one of their own, Indian Waters Council Climate Action Day. So there'll be 2 on certain ones. They have, the participating scouts will receive a collectible merit badge, and they've requested a visit from the mayor during the opening or closing of their ceremony. They've also requested that the city declare the day of their project Indian Waters Council Climate Action Day.
I think we can probably.
And today we have with us, I'm gonna mess this up, y'all, Giovanni Stam Benedetto.
Thanks for being here.
Thank you for being with us.
Say your name again.
Giovanni San Benedetto.
You did it
All
better.
right. Okay.
It's a great name, as someone who has a unique name too. Well done.
Next, we've got Jake Wyman from Ben Lippen School. He got nearly $4,500, and he is working to educate students about the benefits of taking the bus and familiarizing students with the Comet, to get students comfortable taking the Comet. He is doing community outreach, ads, programs, and events, and he'll be distributing bus passes to further encourage bus riding. He really has done his like a little nonprofit, and he calls it Ride the Bus, Save the Planet.
Oh, I love that.
And he's done his website, he's completed his website. He's making plans to go to the universities and colleges to do some tabling events to get them involved. And he's been featured on Soda City Live. That's where that picture came from. And his financial sponsor is Keep the Midlands Beautiful. They're kind of managing the money for him because he's an individual. He's only 15. He's quite a go-getter.
It's incredible.
The next one is the South Carolina Public Health Association. We give them $5,000. They are conducting workshops for college students during Climate Resilience Week, which is the week of November 4th through the 8th. And I've left y'all and put in your places some flyers about some of the events that they're doing. They're going to address extreme heat and weather, recycling, food insecurity, and the mental health impacts of climate disasters. They're also planting a tree in the city, and they're sponsoring a breakfast, a networking breakfast. And today we have with us Beata DeWitt from the association.
It would be great to have them connect to our CPAC and share some of the recommendations that you all hear from the community at the cafe. So the Climate Protection Action Committee is our committee that gives us recommendations. So if there's anything that comes up, would love to make that connection since you are doing stuff all around the area.
The next one is sowing seeds into the Midlands. They got $5,000. They're going to install a hydro solar panels to provide water to a garden called Skylar's Garden. Skylar's Garden is a community service garden. The panels will use clean, renewable, low-cost energy to water the garden. And that kind of goes along with our Ready for 100 clean energy program. It will also serve as a workforce development project. These kids will get some skills putting together these solar panels.
Where is the garden? Where is that garden?
It's at a police substation off Lady Street.
It's in your neighborhood, Councilman.
Right there by the house? And what is it called?
Skylar's Garden.
I just called it a garden behind the house.
You can
I
call
know
it a garden
exactly
behind
what
the
it
house.
said.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Next, we have the USC Office of Sustainability. They got $5,000 to have a employee of food services intern, food systems intern. They are going to raise the student awareness of the need for more sustainable food system practices. They're going to help with campus food recovery programs. They're going to coordinate a sustainable food production workshop. And they're going to demonstrate hydroponic, aeroponic gardening. And last but not least, we have the USC Office of Sustainability. They're doing a home weatherization program for residents of Columbia, a free program. They'll focus on low-income households and homes in the Columbia Heat Island areas. The Heat Island areas are 10 degrees higher in temperature than other areas. So they'll provide low-cost, high-impact retrofits. And low cost is they can do it with the grants, but it is free for the residents. They're currently establishing a partnership with Dominion and identifying program participants. And today we have two of the team leaders, Tina Sandoval and Ella Michelle.
Thanks for being here.
What was that? I'm sorry, Dr. Fuss.
Sorry, I was just gonna say the heat, I know we got a briefing a while back on the heat study. But I think we can help kind of spread the word about this program as well in some of those neighborhoods if you all just let us know.
Yeah.
I think some of them may be in District 2, so.
It'd be good to have that kind of information to impact neighborhood community meetings and the availability of those, finding places where the availability of those funds could probably accentuate that. Thank you.
Speak a little bit about what some of the low-cost, high-impact retrofits might be, if you don't mind. And please come to the mic if you don't mind as well. I'm just curious.
So, yeah, you can say stuff too if you want. But not only does it allow us to pay for it through the grant, but also enables student volunteers to do these retrofits. So some of the things that we're going to be trained to do in the coming weeks through the Sustainability Institute is to do things like basic caulking on windows and doors, installing LED light bulbs, or things like attic tents. We do hope in the future to then make the people who participate in this pilot to then be eligible for more comprehensive retrofits from a third party. But this is just kind of the pilot where we want to focus student volunteers as the ones who are performing the retrofits.
Great, okay.
No, now you have to say something. So these are all streamed live so the public can see them, so.
But really, we're modeling this program based off of Furman University. They started a program very similarly with student volunteers, and then it eventually grew to incorporate Habitat for Humanity to service houses in a more comprehensive, professional way. But at the moment, these are all things that students can do where they can not only get involved in the Columbia community, but also make an impact on what is currently their home if they're USC students, especially if they're from out of state.
Awesome, thank you.
Now, hopefully, this effort is going to grow and accentuate itself in other municipalities.
We're currently focused in the Meadow Lake home. We're currently focused on the Meadow Lake homeowners area. One,
What area?
Meadow Lake in North Columbia. One, that's where I grew up, so my mom and I have a pretty good connection in the community, so finding homes will be easier that way. But this is also purposeful in that Meadow Lake is a community that is not considered low income and that these retrofits are necessary for them to afford their bills. Most of the homeowners in Meadow Lake can already afford their bills, so these high impact, low cost retrofits are not going to be make or break for their monthly budgets. But we would like it to get to a point where we can service areas that are struggling to pay their bills, and that these retrofits can really help.
Good. Well, I'm glad you're starting in Meadow Lake.
Yeah.
I started in Meadow Lake.
Really?
That's right.
Meadowbury Drive. That's it. Yeah.
The money, send me the money.
Okay, anyways.
I think it's admirable that you're at least starting, and hopefully this is going to metastasize into other communities, and it becomes not only a city kind of emphasis, but an emphasis that has the possibility of going statewide.
That's what the goal is, yes. There are several programs across the state. Ella and I have done a lot of research, and these programs can range from federal programs, state programs, Dominion has a program, but currently there's not something that serves the city as a whole, so we're hoping that the university can fill that gap.
Okay, thank you.
As y'all can see, we've got some sharp youth. We're not playing with this, they're doing stuff. You may wonder what's next. We've got 9 recipients, and they've got this money. They are working hard now to complete their projects. Like most grants, there's reporting. Like with most grants, there's reporting. They have a report, midterm report due on Halloween, no trick or treat. And the groups will be doing public presentations to CPAC on what they've learned and what they found and what they achieved. There's another report due in January after the project is complete. We have applied for the $100,000 grant, and we are ready and waiting. As soon as we find out, we're ready to hit the ground running. We've learned a lot through this process. And Peyton underestimated what she did. She's been a great help. We're excited about these projects. Each of us have their own pet project. I like the Columbia College project, particularly. Robert likes the Scholar's Garden. And we're gonna go out and make some visits here in the next few weeks.
It's okay, I like the Rev likes the weatherization, and I like the other whatever.
But with that, I want to thank the groups for coming today, and thank y'all for having us. Do you have any questions?
Mary Pat, I'm curious, it says for the $100,000 allotment, if and when we receive it, do we know about timing of when that award might be? And then the follow-up to that would be, if someone's already started a program, so these young ladies have started a program, is there the opportunity to apply for additional funds to continue?
Yes, there is. But the funding, they said October.
Like
24?
right now?
24.
They said October, when we'll find out.
Oh, we'll find out when,
Of this year,
this year.
So it's almost the end of October.
Soon, we'll know, okay, good.
So we should know something very
Well, I'm
soon.
very hopeful, I
Yeah.
think.
And
Our
I
track
think,
record's been good.
I think we've done a good program, and I think we've got a good chance to get it. So we're gonna have more money and more But people can, if they've done projects, they can do part 2.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Okay? Thank y'all.
Thank you, Mary Pat. Thank you also.
Thank you all for being here as well. Very exciting.
Thank you.
All right, well, we can move to the next agenda item, an animal shelter update. The canine pneumovirus, did I say that right? Okay, Miss Victoria Riles.
What's the street? Beverberry. I live on Beverberry.
Look at that. Do you know Ernest Martin? That's my granddad.
I live on Beverberry for 20 years. 2 Beverberry Drive.
213.
You back this way. Several folk in there help. You live there in Beverberry. Several folk have died.
My grandfather's passed.
You should.
Ernest Martin.
God, that name's. What's your last, what's your name?
My mom's name is Sandoval, my dad's last name, but Martin is my family name.
Native 213. Thank you.
Thank you.
Take care.
Hi, good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Everybody in here, I think, knows how interesting animal services likes to keep things. So today we're going to talk to you guys about an outbreak that we are experiencing at the shelter right now. It's called pneumovirus, and
Oh, boy.
it's called pneumovirus. So first, we'll just open up with talking about what pneumovirus is. Canine infectious respiratory disease, also known as CIRD or kennel cough, is very common in shelter environments. It encompasses many different pathogens. So you guys have probably heard of some of them, like canine influenza or distemper. Pneumovirus is essentially a strain of kennel cough. It comes with some heavier symptoms beyond just coughing, and those are going to include lethargy, loss of appetite. Sometimes you'll see a high fever. In more severe cases, you'll see pneumonia in these dogs. And so once we started to see some symptoms of this, our veterinarian noticed a pattern in some of the bullet points that we're going to talk about that prompted her to reach out to an expert out of the University of Florida, Dr. Crawford. So right away, being the optimistic division that we are, we wanted to look at the pros. And some of those are, this virus is easy to disinfect. It can be killed with a daily cleaner that we are already using in-house. It only lingers on some surfaces for about 1 to 2 hours, and dogs cannot get reinfected if they've had the virus and have overcome it. The cons of this are there's no vaccine against this particular strain of kennel cough, and we cannot test for it. So unlike parvovirus, which our protocol is to test at the door in puppies before they even enter the population, we don't have the ability to test for pneumovirus for new incoming animals. Generally, the only way you're going to know if you are working specifically with pneumovirus is through PCR paneling. So you're sending in swabs to a lab, and you have to wait about 3 or 4 days for those results. So some of the signs and symptoms that would prompt a shelter to start testing are an elevated number of cases. So if you're seeing more sick dogs than you normally do, if those sick dogs are sicker longer than your standard kennel cough, and if you're seeing a burst in infection. And these are all patterns that we were unfortunately seeing in our shelter here in Columbia. So again, we went right into action. Our veterinarian contacted Dr. Crawford out of the University of Florida. And I spoke with a few other shelter directors that have seen pneumovirus in their facilities. That would be Shelley Simmons out of Greenville County Animal Care and Whitney Boylston out of Lake County Animal Shelter in Florida. Greenville is quite a bit bigger, and they're a little bit more resourceful, so they had some abilities to approach pneumovirus differently. We kind of mimicked a model that the director out of Florida mimicked simply because we were closer in size and annual intake. But what we learned from Dr. Crawford as well as other shelter directors is the very first thing you want to do is limit your intake to emergencies only. And then second, most important, is to make sure you're isolating those intakes so they're not coming into the population. So you need to focus first and foremost on the sick and exposed population with your new intakes housed separately so you're not continuing to spread this virus.
May I ask you a question? So the first, Yeah, the first symptoms perhaps is a kennel cough.
You'll generally see coughing as a first sign of it. It can quickly escalate to more severe symptoms, again, like that fever, lethargy, and in some severe cases, pneumonia.
Okay. The other part of that is, how does it affect those persons who deal with the animals every day?
This is only contagious from canine to canine, so humans would not be affected, nor would felines, which is another pro.
Okay. So if you had just an example, if you had heartworms, if a pet had heartworms and they interacted with another animal that had heartworms, that's not contagious, is it?
Heartworm disease is contagious via mosquitoes. So generally, if you have an infected mosquito
Yeah.
that bites a dog, in rare cases, felines can get heartworm disease, but that's not very common. So dogs can't pass heartworms to other dogs, but if a mosquito bit an infected dog, it could potentially transmit that disease. On this point, which is great reminder to citizens to make sure you're giving your dogs heartworm preventative every month, especially in South Carolina. We have really hot summers and mosquitoes, so preventative should help protect your dogs from
So
heartworm.
the neurovirus then, I didn't hear you say it, but I want to see if we're on the same path. Is it deadly?
In some cases, it can be. Every dog's different. Some don't get sick at all. Some get sick with mild symptoms. Some get hit harder, especially if they have underlying other health issues. So if pneumonia progresses to the point of hospitalization, it could be
Okay.
deadly if that care is not sought.
Okay, thank you.
So where we are right now, we have been able to successfully isolate all new incoming intakes to our isolation building across the parking lot. And with the implemented emergencies only policy that we have implemented, we have had very limited intakes. So what we're really trying to focus on is the main building at this time, and that requires absolutely no new animal intakes coming in. We have synchronized the infection because we don't have the ability to separate our exposed from our infected, and the incubation period post that synchronization has already taken place. So right now we are watching the population. Some have already been infected and are deemed cleared because it has been 14 days since they were showing symptoms. So those are being moved to one area of our facility, and they're cleared to move out. They can go to foster homes or be adopted. And the other half of that building that is still either infected or exposed, we're monitoring them. So with these current practices, we are anticipating being back to normal operations in approximately 2 to 3 weeks. We're just letting the virus run its course right now for the half of the building that's still under quarantine.
Does being cold, does it help in the killing of that virus or?
So again, the virus is easy to kill with a daily product that we already use known as Rescue or Excel. And what we would do once we get past this current quarantine period, we know dogs after about 12 days are not shedding anymore. So we would take the days 13 and 14 to do a deep clean of the facility. And we've adopted some of those practices, again, from expert Dr. Crawford and the other directors who have successfully ridded pneumovirus of their facility. So once we deep clean, we should be back to normal operations.
So where are you recommending the dogs that do need to be taken in that aren't fitting this criteria right now? Where are they going? Lexington or?
No, we're relying very heavily on community support, community-based sheltering, which is not a new concept. It's generally, we are spreading this message anyway, but we are putting a little bit more of a mandate on it right now. If you find an animal that's not deemed an emergency intake, these are the steps that you can exercise to either foster it, self-rehome it, posting on platforms, and the shelter is offering resources within our means. So if somebody finds a pet and they need basic vetting and vaccines before they take it home to their environment, we will do that. If somebody needs food to feed the animal or a crate to confine the animal while they post on a recommended platform for the pet's owner, we're giving what we are able to.
And Victoria, I think early on, you pushed out the message about the issues we were having on social media. And so our citizens have been great in terms of working, and also shout out to thank Richland County.
Our partners at Richland County, yeah, they've been very cooperative during these current requirements that we have, so we thank them for that. The community's been really great. Everybody's been understanding and really taking the resources that we're providing and working to advocate for lost or found pets in their community. And then, as you can see here, our staff is really embracing this with grace. Everybody is working really hard. They understand the severity of it. They're following protocols. What you see in these pictures here are our actual isolation building. It's a very limited space. It can only comfortably house 5 pop-up crates. So we are working very hard for any emergency intakes that do come in to rotate them into foster homes so we can keep those crates vacant, because it is so critically important that none of those intakes are going into the main building at this time. So anybody who is to go into that building has to be fully PPE'd up. We actually have a staff member who is only in that building, so there's no back and forth and cross-contamination. There have been some pretty strict guidelines that we're following, and everybody's just doing such a great job with it.
So we've actually taken the virus itself and localized it within the community of animal care so that it does not metastasize across in other areas. Is that the intent?
Yeah, so our main building, again, we don't have a way to really separate the infected from the exposed. So the virus has synchronized at this point. We're past that incubation period. So now we're just watching for the next 14 days. The most important part at this point in the plan is, again, to keep any new intakes out of the building. And in 14 days, we can thoroughly disinfect and be back to normal operations.
Victoria, you and Dr. Bonovich and the team have done a really good job of educating yourselves, becoming subject matter experts, and then educating us as staff and our citizens. So thank you for that. I know this is an unexpected challenge, but
Yes,
we know more about pneumovirus than we ever wanted to. But
Yes, Dr. Crawford, if there are any other organizations that may see this and find themselves dealing with pneumovirus, Dr. Crawford is one of the leading experts in this particular virus out of the University of Florida. She worked with the 2 organizations that also successfully beat the virus as well. So we have been in communication with her just to make sure the protocols that we implemented are within best practices. And we're doing an effort to really beat this in record time. So everybody has really come forward, and the research has been great. So if there are any other organizations or shelters that see themselves with this, hopefully we can be a leader in helping them get through it as well.
Anything you need from us or just FYI for now?
If there are
Okay.
any other questions, I'd be happy to take them. Otherwise, we're on the.
Well, obviously, it's you detected the virus. How do you, and I'm sure there are incremental ways you find out where those animals are infected. How do you take this effort, what's it called,
Pneumovirus.
pneumovirus? How do you take that and it gets into your shelter? And you find out that a dog is infected with that virus. Is it more dogs that's entering into that environment in terms of a shelter? Or are these dogs that are being handed over to persons in the shelter?
So, well, it's not a very common virus, so it's fair to believe that an infected dog came in. But when you're in overpopulated environments like shelters and it's an aerosolized bacteria, that's when it's really hard to keep under control. And again, there's no testing for it. So many times it's already infected approximately 25% of your population by the time you've reported that you have it in your facility.
Thank you, Victoria.
Absolutely.
thank you.
All right, and then we'll move into a period of committee discussion and get an update on the planted wildlife gardens ordinance that I believe we discussed last meeting with some text changes we wanted to make.
That is correct. I'm Jessica Keinert, a senior assistant attorney for the city. You have before you an updated version of the ordinance. Really all that's changed is the last section, 8-306, talking about a certification process. One of the conversations that we focused on at the last meeting was how to separate or certify, name these gardens so that code enforcement would know that it's not just somebody's yard that's overgrown. And the way we've tackled this with input from code enforcement and other groups is to have these homeowners register their gardens with code enforcement prior, or as soon as this ordinance goes into effect, if they have an existing garden or before they attempt to start planting one. So that way we have an existing list of people who are participating in this kind of garden and planting. And, that minimizes, if not eliminates, someone from being saying, oh yeah, this is a natural garden, when it's just they haven't mowed their lawn in 6 months. We've also included some language called cues to care to try and help identify what a naturalistic garden is, to show that it is a garden, it's planted, maintained, has bird baths, walkways, edging, things like that. Certainly that's not a laundry list, that's not a firm checklist, it's a, included but not limited to kind of list.
And cues to care is like a term.
It's a term of art in the community.
Okay, great. Okay.
Yes. Sorry, as part of the registration process with code enforcement, we have encouraged any property owner to get certified through one of these organizations. We've listed a couple in here, like the South Carolina Wildlife Federation, Gills Creek Watershed Association, and Clemson's Carolina Yard. All of these associations promote native planting and naturalistic gardens, and you can go through checklists with them to get certified and say, my garden is a naturalistic garden. There are also signs, which we talked about last time, and we've kind of gone away from requiring anybody to have a sign in their yard and gone with the registration with code enforcement instead. So to be registered with code enforcement, you either have to take your certification from one of these associations and go to code enforcement and say, look, I'm certified, or code enforcement needs to come to your house and look for these cues to care, say, yes, this is a garden, not an overgrown yard, and then you'll be on the list. And then in subsection C, we did add that, sanitation and health are still issues. We don't want a ton of snakes and rats and mosquitoes everywhere. So should one of these gardens become itself overgrown to the point of being unsafe, code enforcement still has the ability to give them notice to clean up, and then if they don't abide by that notice, to clear it out.
Jessica, if I might add, I think as we talked about, David Hatcher wasn't able to be here today or the last meeting, but as we talked with David about his code enforcement staff, his biggest concern, and he fully supports the natural plantings, no issues there, but it's how are my officers gonna know whether or not.
That's right.
And so that's where we came up with this, just register, it doesn't cost you anything. Let us know, and that way we can put that on GIS, we can have our list, and that way we're not going back and, a different officer going to that
Is
property.
there a certain protocol, Clint, that we need to ensure that code enforcers adhere to?
Yes, sir. I think what we're talking about doing is David's gonna bring in some of the experts from these organizations that certify gardens and
Okay.
educate our officers on what these cues to care are, so they'll know what to look for. And if they go do an inspection, that sort of thing. He may
Okay.
work toward a subject matter expert as well.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. And I do want to thank Ms. German and Gills Creek and everybody that's been involved with this.
Very helpful.
She's done a fabulous, fabulous job.
Thank you, Trish.
We couldn't ask for anything better. We couldn't do anything better.
Thank you for saying that. We agree, yes.
So the next step would be moving this up to all council? Are
Yes,
you okay with that?
yes.
Yeah, I am too. All right, I believe that is it for today's discussion. Any other items, walk-ons? Okay, well then this meeting is adjourned at 1:57.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair.